Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. I am once again joined by the reigning Dimp Digital Gaming Quiz champion. It's Tom Adkins, not Adcock. How's it going?
Yeah, not too shabby.
Been out on the piss, I've heard.
I did have a cup. The El Vino did flow. I suffered a little bit.
Cool.
Just a couple of indoor bevies.
It will get on top of you.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. I've actually got a beer here I'm about to open. Tempest Brewing Company.
Ooh.
Vermont Sessions, 4.6% hazy session IPA. So let's open this up and give it a fucking whirl. Fresh out of the fucking fridge. Didn't go everywhere. Cool, smells good.
What makes it become a session? Is it? I thought it was anything under 4.5, but
well, it's the thing with the old brew dogs. Their session IPA, which I think's Dead Pony Club, that's about 3.5%, and that's kind of like what I would expect to be if I'm on a session. That's what it's trying to tell me. You can have 30 of these and be fine, but 4.6% is stronger than most lagers. So I don't know what makes it a session. What is it? Let's have a look. Beerwolf.com. What is a session? It's not a full fat IPA, nor a pale ale, nor a British seasonal, British style sessionable pale ale. Instead, it's fucking garbage. Some Venn diagram. To people who know the beer, the Pixel Pint guys will know this better than me. You tell me, and then I'll reveal it what it is. I can't be looking over this live. Well, it's not live, but I have to fucking edit it out. But that's their shtick anyway, the beers. But this Vermont Sessions tastes alright after one sip, but we'll see how it goes. We've got a couple of cans in here, and it is a celebration episode, big one. Games of the generation. So
cool.
People may remember, long-time fan or short-term fans now, on the road to next gen, which is now current gen, we were talking through each of the platforms and the specific games that came out on those platforms. So we've done a PlayStation 4 episode, and we did an Xbox One episode, and then we did a Best of the Rest episode, which was like Switch, fucking PC, whatever else don't fit into those. But this is they're in their own segregated vacuum episode, so there was no real competition there. This is the big boy shit now. We're gonna run through Dimp Digital's nominations for Games of the Generation, and eventually Game of the Generation, and then crown that winner. And the way we're doing it is it's time based. So from the start of the 8th generation, which was the 15th of November 2013, until the 9th of November 2020. So anything on the 10th onwards is cut. So for example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was released on the 10th of November. That is not eligible for this particular awards. Spoilers, it weren't going to get in the fucking top rankings anyway. And then double spoilers for the end of next gen. It ain't going to be on that final list. If it is, we've had an horrible generation. And not that it's a bad game, but if that's the best that is being churned out, I think we're in for being worried. But that's your cut-off point. Ubisoft have blown it. They come out on the 10th. You're part of this 9th gen, as far as we're concerned. And like I said, it's not platform-specific now. It doesn't have to be PlayStation or Xbox. It can come from the Switch. It can come from the fucking Wii U if it wants, if it came out on the 15th of November after. PC, obviously mobile. The lot is here. So that's how we're doing it. And we will crack on and get to that. But Idle Game Chat has a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Idle Game Chat. You can go there to chuck some money our way and help out of the show, put hand in pocket, all that good shit. Now, we've had to boil this list down to 6 games. which is a tough ask with these no platform restrictions. How does that make you feel about boiling an entire generation down to 6 games? Is it fair?
It's tough. They've got to make what's your cut off? You know, 6 games. You've got to have a cut. I'll include them all. So you've got to be the best.
Yes.
Be the best
to be on this fucking list. And we've excluded remasters, so they're cut, but allowed remakes. So, for example, I'm not saying this is definitely on the list or not on the list. Resident Evil 2 would be eligible, but The Last of Us Remastered wouldn't. And that's all people need to know. That's how it's working. That's what we came up with. We put our heads together and came out with that rule. Sue me if it's wrong, but I can tell you it ain't. So, we're going to run through these 6 games, briefly chat about them, do a little bit of analysis on the 6 as a total, got a few interesting facts and figures and whatnot, then do our personal picks, and then do some honourable mentions, and finally cap off the winner of this game of the generation for Dimp Digital. So we're going to start with the most recent games that are on this list and then work our way to the older ones. Save the old boys to the last, because I think some of the newer ones people will be like, yeah, I expected that. As time goes on, they may be unsuspecting for what appears on this list of 6 games. Let's not bat around the bush. We've got The Last of Us Part 2 here, 19th of June 2020. Drucker's back in action. Builds off the platform of the very successful The Last of Us. Huge pressure on this game, I feel. Given how, universally acclaimed the first one was, how much the fans loved the original Last of Us, there's huge pressure here, and you'll be forgiven for saying, look, these boys, they've got a good formula down The Last of Us, let's play it safe. But they don't do that. This is a brave sequel that changes direction quite heavily, let's just say, and they almost, not purposely, I don't think, but they went against the grain and done a lot of things that have upset a lot of people, and critically, very well received. Going to be one of the best games of this year, no doubt. And it's scoring on OpenCritic up in the top 1 or 2, depending on the day. It's fighting out of Hades at the moment. But the fanfare, good lord, the blowback and poison and toxicity that this churned out. A lot of people may be shocked to see it in this list, but I think generally within the Dimp realm, everyone that played it was a big fan of this and sort of applauded the braveness of Naughty Dog here.
That was our worry going into it. The build-up is obviously the excitement, but it was just that question of how do they topple the first one?
Why are they meddling? People are saying.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing as well. People said we don't need a sequel, and it didn't really.
No.
But then they announced it. They did, obviously. It's a business. It needs a sequel. Can't stop that cash cow coming through, and we get the sequel. And just amazed at how they answered that question of how can we make this better than the first, and did, like you say, not playing it safe. They could have easily just carbon copied, just carried it on, just done the same sort of thing, up the res, done a bit of that different, but stuck to the grain. Instead, they went against it and churned out an absolute fucking brilliant game.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we got caught up in talking about when we mentioned The Last of Us Part 2 is the narrative. And that we don't like to spoil things in case people haven't played it, but that's certainly the highlight here, and the way the narrative is structured, the way it's told, it fits so well into a video game format that I don't know if you could get away with doing it you certainly couldn't do it in a film. You would need a long-running TV series to do this and pull it off as well as Naughty Dog have. So that's great, but I don't know if we give enough credit to some of the gameplay enhancements they made. Just mechanically, when it comes to the combat and the design, having much more open areas and giving you far more tools of the trade to take out your enemies, just to be able to go prone was just. I mean,
Yeah.
we're giving it credit for quite basic things here, but some of these things fundamentally changed how the game was played.
Yeah. Even like, what was it, the inclusion of like a little grapple hook.
Yeah.
Which, most games probably have them these days, but just that sort of inclusion, it just made it a nice sequel. But yeah, the gameplay, like, that's the thing, because the first game was such a narrative-driven game as well, and obviously this one is too. But yeah, I've got to say the combat does take a sort of backseat, but it shouldn't, because it's a lot of fun. I think that's what a lot of people's criticism was of the first game, that it was just focused on narrative, and maybe the combat wasn't that sort of innovative and the main focus. But this one, it just, the sort of little things you can do, it's just remarkable. I mean, like, I think I mentioned in the last pod that I was watching these videos, and there's like people like going into the little tiny things that you wouldn't ever notice in the game. Things like if you leave your character idle, the sort of things they'll do, the conversations they'll have. Yeah. If you do, you can somehow use physics with that grappling hook and wrap it round certain things and pull yourself up. It's insane.
Yeah, for a game that was much expanded and much longer and bigger than its original, the attention to detail that was retained is phenomenal. And graphically, it's a stunner. It's bleak, but it's a stunner. Like, they've got this. It just looks beautiful. I mean, I don't know if it is the best looking game of the generation, but it's one of them. It'll be, again, if ever we did a graphics podcast, which we definitely won't, this would be on the shortlist for sure, because it's just stunning to look at and stunning to play and stunning in motion, which is sometimes where some games fall down. They look fucking excellent in a screenshot, and then when you play it, you're like, it looks all right. But this just looks fucking amazing when you're playing it in motion.
Forgot that it came out in June. Normally, like, I can't remember what time of year the first one come out, but
I think it was June again.
June again, was it? It seems like that sort of bleakness. You'd be happy, like it'd be this sort of time in the year when it's dark at 4:00, everything's depressing, cold outside. That's in the peak of the summer when everything's glorious and sunshine, and then you've got fucking 40 hours of bleakness to deal with.
June 14th it came out, 2013, the original, and this was June 19th, so just days apart, 7 years on.
Fucking end. He waits for it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it got delayed, didn't it? It's supposed to be with us in May, and then COVID was cited as an issue. Then the leaks happened. Then there was like, it's coming out in June. It's like, well, hang on a minute, that's like 3 weeks.
I forgot about them leaks, the poor bastards.
Yeah, nasty
Luckily,
bastards. Yeah, we managed to get away with that. But stunning game, deserves to be on the list. And like with the PS3, The Last of Us, really the swan song on the PS4 in this case. And I know we had Ghost of Tsushima afterwards, which is a stunning game in its own right. But I feel like this was the kind of the culmination of the PS4, and be interesting to see where they go next, if they do bother going anywhere next with it.
Yeah, Druckmann just fucking sits there for a whole generation, just watches people churning out all these games.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just building that knowledge. Just gains every little thing from it, and then right at the end of the console, he just pulls out a banger and goes, that generation was mine.
I'll take the title for that. Yeah, it's a special game for sure. We have to move back in time over 2 years before we get to our next game. 20th of April 2018. God of War. Kratos. What's he fucking doing back? This fucking madman. Who gives a fuck about Kratos? Well, we've said it before, but this
Fortnite now.
Pardon?
Fucking farting about dancing in fucking Fortnite now.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's happened to him. He's had a sip of the fucking wine after bubbly after he's fucking made it big, and now he's fucking on the blow, and now he's fucking dancing with Kojima on fucking Fortnite.
Yeah, it's madness, isn't it? Fortunately,
long time fan of the franchise, and was always expecting to be fair, I was just expecting another sequel, to be honest. They were always talking about a reboot, but wasn't expecting so much of a reboot. And if I did think it would be that, then I I would have been worried to think, well, is it going to cut it with this Norse mythology? You know, it's always been Greek.
Yeah.
He's always been this boring character, except just an angry dude, an angry warrior. And yeah, they just, again, a bit like The Last of Us, I think they learned from that story of narrative-driven side and was like, let's flesh out Kratos as a character.
Yeah.
Pretty much go for a full reboot, but still retaining some of the sort of core elements of the game. It's still, you know, it's not a sort of like a box standard hack and slash, but it does still have those hack and slash combat elements. Can't even fucking jump, which is
no, you can't.
insane. It wasn't needed because, yeah, the reboot was a real leap from the thing, and again, another fucking beauty.
Yeah, stunning. I mean, my little tagline for God of War is that pound for pound, it's the best video game out there. And that's a title that can change and has previously been held by others. I think back to probably back in the day, Ocarina of Time would have had it. That Zelda game, that would have been pound for pound the best game for a long time. But I really truly think now that God of War has taken that particular crown. I think it's so well rounded, and it has great story, it has great combat, it has great exploration. The world building they put in there, it's a lesson in how to have a companion with you for the whole game and not be annoying or in the way, to actually make that companion useful. And
play Resident Evil 5, with that Shiva, and then play that after you've just played God of War, and you will truly understand how well they've done that companion.
Yeah. It's really like one of the things that especially the original Last of Us was dinged for was that Ellie was always just bumbling around hitting clickers and stuff and getting away with it. And I know God of War's not a stealth game, but they didn't have to worry about that. But they still implemented Atreus really well, and he's never a pain in the arse. And there's little subtle things you can do with him to help you out in certain situations. And I love that he's just kind of involved in the peripheral. He's not required, but he will help you get you out of a jam. He's not always constantly getting grabbed and you're having to break him up. Yes, it can happen, but it's very rarely a problem and will cost you, a checkpoint or dying or whatever. It's just, it's a stunning looking game. Has all the elements of a modern video game and bashes them all out the park and says, what else you got for me? And to be honest, I haven't got much else to throw against it to put it up to the test, because it passes with flying colours for pretty much everything I look for in a video game these days. And it's that there's no guarantees that this is going to be this good for sure, or any good, because you'd mentioned previously, being a long time fan, that it maybe had soured a little bit over time in the sort of the later entries, and then go in a different direction. You run the risk of upsetting fans like you, like, well, I want my Kratos back. I want to be able to jump. And then there's people like me who've only done God of War 3 remastered, coming along going, well, what we got here? And I think they've done a great job of getting the old people on board and all the new guys as well, and told a story that made sense for both. This is now a cornerstone, like a pillar of the Sony first party lineup, which it simply, probably hadn't been for a long time, in all honesty. No, it's more PS2 era, I'd say. 3 did do very well at the time, but that was sort of standing out. But then again, like I say, they released Ascension that wasn't very great. Yeah. They focused a lot on some of the handheld games as well, which for handheld games they were alright, but obviously weren't knocking down fucking barriers or anything. No. And then they turned this one and fucking... Well, I still can't... It still baffles me when I was recently on the PlayStation 5, booted it up and started a bit of a new game plus with the intention of going through it and just remembering how it all... Obviously it wasn't done, but the way it's all cut is in it's one take. Thing, and it's just seamless. Everything cuts into everything. And it just blows my mind, that does. That's such an underrated aspect of some games, like the non-fade into black, like the continuous camera movements. I mean, this one doesn't cut away, does it? I think is the thing. It's just one continuous swinging camera, which is mind-blowing. I think it cheats maybe once or twice. I remember watching the documentary on it, but still mind-blowing. But even games where there's just no fade to black, like I'm playing a lot of Valhalla at the moment, and it just it's so subtle, but it really does just disconnect you from that moment and realise that you're still playing a video game. I think of games like God of War where it doesn't do that. I don't think The Last of Us Part 2 does it either, and I know that Red Dead Redemption doesn't do it either, Red Dead 2. And it really it has a real positive impact on the way I kind of take in these games, and it's something that a lot of people just won't notice, but I think subtly it builds that immersion. When there's so many things that could take you out of it, that's one thing that they keep you sucked in and focused on the video game. Wish more people would do it, but
it'd be interesting to see if they do make a God of War 5 or whatever. Oh no, was it Ragnarok? It's already been confirmed. If they carry that into the new game,
I think once you've done it once,
that's it. Yeah,
Corey, you've made the promise now. You can't go back on it, mate.
It, people will be going, oh, fucking hell, he's cheated on it.
Yeah, it's like when your missus starts making you sandwiches for lunch, like when you go to work, and you think, cool, I can't be going without those. If they suddenly stop, there'll be an argument. And she's well within her rights to stop. It's hard work making them sandwiches, and all you do is moan about them half the time. But you, as a connoisseur of your sandwiches, you think, cool, where have they gone? I was looking forward to that on a Thursday. I'll have to go and get a McDonald's. And then that argument pipes up. You're having too many takeaways. It's like, wow, make the sandwiches. I like them. Once you've given something, you can't take it back, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so Corey, listen.
Ain't this Vermont Sessions talking. This is proper analysis, giving you tips, mate. But we will do like a, hopefully, I keep saying we'll do all these things and we never get round to it, but like a hype list of 2021, and that'll be on the list for sure, and we'll talk about the next game. But it's great to have, what I love about God of War is it's an established franchise. It bought what was old, made it new again, got new fans on board, satisfied the old fans, critically a success, and just so well-rounded. That fucking axe, best tool in video games. And that can have that for this generation, and see if it can get knocked off its fucking crown again. But
I remember that Gears of War Lancer, thinking that was such a revolutionary weapon and tool. It's like, it's so fun to use, to be able to cut people in half and then shoot at the same time.
Yeah.
And then he pulls that axe out and you're like, oh! You're like, fucking pisses all over that silly little Lancer.
I remember vividly, like, getting into that game and just, like, the opening piece of combat where you just attack like 4 or 5 like quite fodder enemies, you know, by the time you get midway through they're not a problem, but just the first swing of the axe and connected with one of them, I just thought, oh, this feels so fucking good, and I've just swung this fucker once, then I threw it and summoned it back, and I was like, oh, how are they going to keep this up? And they do, they keep it up with new runes and whatnot and other surprises down the line that keep the combat fresh, and stunner. God of War, well done.
Well done.
We move back another year. 2017, Rat.
Cool.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Technically a Wii U port, because it went on Wii U and then released on the day that the Switch came out. I mean, that's a great launch game for the Switch.
Yeah, shit. I always forget that was part of Wii U. Do they still make games for the Wii U, or has that been cut?
I don't know. I think a lot of them have stopped now. Like, that's why there's, I think one of them's like Devil's Third is like a really expensive game to buy on the second-hand market because it's out of print. So if you've got a new version of that lying around, you could sell it on eBay to a collector and they would be after it. So I think it's all over on that front. I mean, I don't know if Nintendo are still making games for the Switch, I'm honest. They fucking dried right up.
I'm going to say they're having a barren year. Talking of barren, The Legend of Zelda. It baffles me with that still. But yeah, what a launch lineup. And our first console to get day one. Get this to start. Fucking Zelda. And there was a lot of hype to it. A lot of hype. and again, another deviation in sort of not a reboot, but
like a formula change, wasn't it? Huge change.
So it took away the sort of box standard dungeons and replaced it with these shrines. The structure of the whole game, the fact that it was like an open world and you could go straight to the boss if you wanted to.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, it really isn't. The thing that the biggest takeaway from this game for me it just still blows my mind is the physics. It's almost like a fucking Half-Life game.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Like, that's definitely a standout of how your rune powers, your weapons interact with your enemies and the surrounding environment, and the way fire fucking spreads. The way that I remember one time I was carrying 5 apples and I was like, right, I'm just going to put these apples down and I was going to cook them by a little fire. Fucking wind picked up and blew them off the edge of the cliff and they were gone. I was like, cool, that's my fucking apples. I've lost them. But you can use all that to your advantage in combat, and then you combine that with like the rune powers, and the more you experiment with those powers, the more you will yield out of this game, and the more that you adventure and go off into, you know, the nooks and crannies of the world. Very rarely, and I've played the game through once properly. Probably tried it a couple of other times after that, and then fallen by the wayside. But honestly, I think 3 times I've run around on that Great Plateau, like the opening tutorial. Every single time I've found something I didn't find the first time, or the second time, or even the third time. Like, it's crazy how many little surprises and Kurok seeds and puzzles are lying around in that game if you choose to go out and look for them. Now, if you like your traditional kind of objective-based games, I can see where Breath of the Wild wouldn't really suit you, but if you're happy just to sort of wander off and make what you will of it, you'll be handsomely rewarded throughout every moment of this game, because it's truly packed full of surprises. Even on the surface, as though you said, it does appear to be a barren kind of wasteland, but you'll be finding those puzzles and shrines all over the place.
Yeah, we're probably just so used to like Ubisoft bloke feels. Every fucking some looking areas fucking around the corner, and you got open worlds full of shit.
I'm chasing paper around the village now. I'm like, what am I doing here?
That probably was a nice breath of fresh air, really.
Yeah,
pun intended. But no, well, it does, like, especially now it's art style as well. There's like there's almost like it's all crafted its own genre. You now have like 2 recent games that have come out, Genshin's Impact and Mortal's Phoenix Rising, and people are calling them sort of Breath of the Wild style, the Breath of the Wild style graphics, and just because it has that sort of anime, sort of cartoonish look, it just really does, like, you know that the Zelda's the top of the bill, and they're never going to be able to replicate that, but it's just like such a nice looking game, and like you said earlier, what a fucking banger to start the generation off on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, another thing, like, if you can see something in the world, you can get there, like, you can wander over there and climb it. Like, it's a vast landscape, but if you can see it, you can get to it, because you can climb up any kind of, you know, wall or mountain, as long as you've got the stamina for it. So, yeah, you can make a real good go at this. The environment's great, you know, the weather changes and whatnot. I remember at one point when a storm kicks up, if you've got a metal sword out, it will attract the lightning.
For me now, I didn't know that was going to happen. I was walking through a forest with that fucking thing.
It fucking blows you away.
Sure.
Well, you got 3 hearts. You've killed me in one lightning bolt.
Absolute fucking. Even like the old. There's like the chili, like you go up into a frozen mountain. So if you have like a bowl of hot food or something, that will make you like withstand the cold for a little bit longer.
Yes.
Then again, if you have that cold resistant, if you're going up in a mountain stuff, it's just there's little bits like that. Just sort of incredible for a Nintendo game at the end of the day, you know, aimed at children mainly.
Yeah, them kiddies loving it. But yeah, great game, Breath of the Wild. I think it deserves its place on this list, and you know, any one of these games could end up being the fucking winner. So we'll see at the end whether that's taking the championship or not. We're back to Naughty Dog. They've managed to creep 2 on the list. Uncharted 4, 10th of May 2016. I fucking love this game. I really enjoyed playing through Uncharted 4. The campaign was just... It's just an excellent single player campaign, and I'd played through the first 3 Uncharted games, and they were great, and 2 specifically kind of stood out last generation now, as being a bit of a milestone. But Uncharted 4, changing up the narrative direction just so slightly, just to give it some more serious undertones, retaining all the happy-go-lucky charm of Nathan Drake, building it up that this is a thieves' end, so this could be his last ever outing, and introducing grappling hooks and all sorts, and expanding, like they did a bit of it in The Last of Us 2, made the landscapes a little bit bigger so you've got more options. And then them set pieces, not to be rivaled really from any studio at this rate. Take it away with Uncharted 4, because you platinumed this bastard.
Oh, I did, yeah. It was just such a joy to play, such a brilliant story. Again, not a reboot, but it was a big change in personnel as well. You had...
Hennig sacked.
Hennig, what did she do? She chucked it in for Visceral?
I think...
Project, wasn't it?
She ended up over there doing that Star Wars game that got been...
She was like, fucking hell. So she was something happened there. And again, it was sort of in the lurch. Always knew it was coming, but then we was like, right, so what's fucking happened here? Who's going to take over this? And then they reveal that the co-partners that have just done The Last of Us, Drucker Straley.
Yeah.
In you go, deal with fucking Nathan Drake and put your little take on him. Go get fucking mushroom zombies coming into Uncharted. Like you say, it was just, they done so fantastic. It kept the same sort of charm. It didn't feel like too much of a deviation, even though it was more narrative driven than, say, 1, 2, and 3. Again, implementing more combat with the use of the grappling hook. But being able to ride the car, incredible.
Yeah. There's a whole open section in that car, like in that campaign, where you drive around in the Jeep, and that particular segment of the game is a prototype for what become Lost Legacy, which was the main meat of the game, kind of like the expand-alone or the spin-off or whatever you want to call it. And then there's also a very similar section in The Last of Us Part 2, where there's an open area there where you can go and explore at your leisure. So all those routes and all those ideas come back to 2016, 10th of May, Uncharted 4 with Nathan Drake.
Yeah, incredible. But yeah, and then... even adding characters in, this was a thing like Nathan Drake. It was always a bit like, it's the fun set pieces were stand out, and the characters like Nathan Drake, such a likable character. It's almost like a modern day Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
He's like that really fun character. You obviously had Sully and his wife, and then they managed to chuck in a new character, voiced by one Troy Baker, and he was sort of heartwarmingly fun, and you sort of warmed to him and cared about him as well.
Yeah.
Which is certainly quite hard to do, especially with a franchise, on the 4th, some may say 5th because of the Vita game, but
fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never actually played that.
No, I'm surprised it wasn't in the Drake remastered collection, because it is Drake that's in that.
Yeah, that's true. Blue Point that did that, I think. But yeah, so again, four games in, and you're going, right, here's a new character, deal with this.
Yeah.
No mention of him in the other ones. We'll just sneak him in. And yeah, they've done a fantastic job. But yeah, it was just the gameplay. It was so fun to play. Like the sort of melee combat, the guns, and then using that rope, and then, like you say, just going down, just straight
exploration and the puzzles and the traversing around, and it's stunning. Again, it's Naughty Dog, but you come to kind of just expect it. But a lot of games will not hit this level of fidelity and graphical prowess. I think even some will struggle this gen, in all honesty. It's that good, Uncharted 4. It looks that good in segments and throughout the entire game. And they just don't miss a beat, these Naughty Dogs guys. They really do seem just to nail and get everything right they aim for. And, Uncharted 4, fantastic game. We've mentioned a lot about the single player stuff. It did have a multiplayer component to it, sort of standard multiplayer, which was reasonably fun. Enjoyed that, but what I really liked was that version of Horde mode they had, because we actually played that for a fair few hours. That was a nice little surprise to have and play post campaign.
Cool, 60 FPS were running smooth as well. It was a nice little thing. Yeah, I do hope they do a patch for the new PlayStation 5. It's bundled in the PS collection, so anyone that hasn't, do go and fucking play it, because it was a bit of a bolt on multiplayer, but it's definitely fun to be added there. But that campaign, whew,
absolute stunner.
I'll take another one all day long. But,
if it's that good, then absolutely. Because we talked about bloat in many times during our chats, which it just seems like it's part and parcel with a lot of games nowadays. Whereas Uncharted 4 is fucking lean as, and doesn't feel like it's been chopped or changed or cut. It feels just right for a single player campaign that you could play, periodically on and off and get a good bit of time out of it, or you could smash it out over a weekend if you wanted to sit there and drill it and get those big sessions in, and you get treated to a lovely, start, middle, and end of a story. And I do tend to appreciate the shorter side of games. It's not like we're not talking 6-8 hours. It's in the 15 to 17 hour range from what I remember, but that's just about perfect for me. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. Absolutely. Right, we're back in May, but we've gone back a year again. 2015, 18th of May, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Oh, Christ. Peak Game of Thrones joy. It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't really a huge fan. I tried that fucking first game, played it for about an hour and had to bin it. I just couldn't get on with it. Too old
which is
and
now
too shit.
Free forever on GOG.
Yep. On good old games, if you want to torture yourself.
Torture yourself, go back.
Second I remember
he's done it. Rodney, with his fucking gaming ways, had to go through number 2 before he could play 3. So ploughed my way through number 2, which is a fantastic game in its own right. And then we got 3, which was huge. Was it? It wasn't another deviation, really, was it? I don't know. I suppose 2 was a bit more linear than 3 is. Yeah, I mean, I've not played 2, but my understanding was it wasn't full open worldish. It was kind of like 2 big areas, and that's right, had those more linear moments for sure. And this was Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So was full blown. Go off and do what you want, and get lost in this world we've created. No, it was a full fat RPG. This was. It felt like it was. Nothing like Mass Effect, but I felt like that was my last proper RPG that I'd played. Right, yeah. Mass Effect 3, and was sort of wanting something of that ilk. And then when this came out, it just started ticked all the boxes. Geralt, again, they fleshed him out as a character. Yeah. The combat, just the way you can sort of, I suppose, just role playing, you can change You can sort of mould Geralt to how you want to be, like with his armour, some of his perks. You could be someone who uses all these sort of resins and all this magic shit on his, rather than sort of being close quarters combat. It's so fun. And then it was the game that sort of reinvented the side quest. Yeah, made them actually relevant and have some sort of depth to them, not just throwaway toot that I feel like was inherited from a lot of MMO fetch quest games. This eradicates all of that, and I would say every side quest in this game is worthwhile seeking out and playing. Like you'll get something out of it. Some of them give you quite hefty decisions to make that play out later on in another sort of side quest or a little Easter egg, in the game later on. It always feels like there's a reason to do it, because Geralt, for lack of a better term, is a witcher, which is basically a mercenary and a contractor. So if there's money to be had, he'll be sticking his nose in and saying, how can I make this money? And then sometimes you're left with some horrible decisions to make, and you're like, I wasn't expecting this. I only went here to go just stop him before I went to Novigrad and carried on with the main quest, and now I'm enthralled in this bloody mess. Yeah. No, it is such a fucking fun thing to play. I was going to say something which completely gone.
Great music, superb, fantastic music. In fact, some of the best that I've had in a game, and the world and environment feels alive with the weather and the wind and this sounds like really mundane shit, but it feels like a genuine like world that you're roaring around in. And,
so many of the areas so atmospheric. It just feels, when you're in the fucking swamps with a load of fucking drowners, you feel like chucking your life in.
Yeah.
So good. But I remember what I was going to say. It was on the game's length. It's quite a meaty game.
Oh yeah, it's a big bastard.
Puts me off. I typically like the smaller games because I feel I can get through them and that. Every now and again, I will like a meat monster. But this game, it was just so much shit to do that was enjoyable that I don't think ever in my playthrough I was sort of like, cool, this is dragging. Get me to the end.
Yeah.
It took me a while to finish it, but it was just one of those games that you could just sink hours and hours into, and you think, it's so much fun to play, and then it just kept going and going, and just didn't feel like a chore to play.
Yes, no. I mean, one of the things I like, this is a small detail, but the fact that Geralt's beard would grow as time went on, which was taken to the next level in another game that we'll get to in our personal picks. But I was just amazed that I would be travelling around and I'd slowly see his beard growing. I was like, that's really cool. And it was complemented by a fantastic expansion pass with DLC, and it's a superb open world RPG, and really, put the cat amongst the pigeons for these sloppy side quests if you need to be doing them and adding them in. This makes you want to play them with the characters that you meet and the scrapes that you get into. And some of them are just even comedy quests where they end up. It's just hilarious. But there's some serious shit as well to be had if you go searching for it. Has all the great elements of a modern RPG with leveling up and changing gear and all that good stuff, gaining XP, collectibles and armor sets that you can go off and find. You can really get yourself lost in doing all sorts of stuff here, and it's a great adventure. Highly, highly recommended here. Now, final game on this top 6, which will eventually become 1 winner and 5 nominated games. 24th of March 2015, so we're still in that 2015. From Software collaborate with that fucking Sony lot and release this nemesis of yours, Bloodborne.
Ooh,
you've only played a handful of this. Got to Gascoigne. Did you do Gascoigne over?
Yeah, I did beat Gascoigne.
Wait, Gascoigne off.
So I think he was the last boss I killed. I'm up to that fucker in the on the fucking tower of that Gatling gun, so it's literally not that far at all.
Old
really.
Yarnum, I think that is.
Old Yarnum, that's it. But this is, I said this when we was talking about the PlayStation generation, and it's the game that haunts me, that I never finished it because I know its prowess. I know how
it's intimidating.
Yeah, it is. And it's my biggest regret of not getting this done before. I know I can still go back to it. That's the good thing about the PS5 being backwards compat. So I've still got the chance, but Rodney won't accept it. It should have been done and focused on it. But yeah, it's when you hear about the top games of the generation of any console, even of all time, Bloodborne does get put into this. It's always up there.
Yeah, it was my first From Software game that I played, first Soulsborne as it's called now game, and yes, very challenging at times, extremely intimidating. No real direction given. Dozens of times I would end up at a dead end and think, where the fuck do I go next? And it required a level of support from experienced people that had played it, and I kind of went to a community and was asking questions, and they would give me cryptic answers enough for me to go by. I was like, okay, cool, to get me back on track. And I have a bit of a complicated relationship with the From Software stuff, in that I really do think Bloodborne's a great game, and I enjoyed my playthrough. I think actually I eventually named it as my personal game of the year in 2015. So it actually snipped The Witcher that year, which upset people. But because I'd not been exposed to Dark Souls or Demon Souls before that, this was my first experience of it, and I do feel like those initial experiences are very special. You just get a real appreciation for level design in terms of not just, how it looks, but the actual routes in which you can take alongside the shortcuts that you open up, how these worlds link together. And the real kicker for me in Bloodborne is that the combat's a bit faster paced. There's none of this hiding behind shield bollocks. You've got to get in there, get out, dodge, maintain your stamina, really concentrate whilst you're playing, and then it's just set in this horrible, dingy, dark world, which for me, I did love Bloodborne, but the other From Software games that have come after that haven't appealed to me enough to go back into it. I feel like because it is challenging. Like from when you start the game until when you and you've been for this with Sekiro, until you finish it eats you up a little bit because you're up against it, and it's not always a pleasant experience. But you come out the other side of that, and you feel great about yourself. And in order to hook me in, you kind of need that. It needs to come along with this interesting world, and that's what Bloodborne was. I loved all the creature designs, the enemy designs. It looked fucking great on the PS4. Ran like a bit of a pig sometimes. Awful load times when you die, so very punishing. But not having gone through one of those games before, and to hear that even experienced Souls people like Salmons of the world, the Adcox, they seem to put this one at the top of their list still. So they did something special here and managed to drag me in for the one game. Will I go back and try a Demon Souls? I don't know. We'll see. But Bloodborne was such a great game. And again, we talk about formulas. We'd had Dark Souls 1, I think Dark Souls 2 by this point. This comes in and takes away the shields and all that good stuff, retains all the stuff that makes it good, just tweaks it enough for experienced people like the Salmons, like the Adcox to come along and say, oh, this feels a bit different, I'm going to have to up my game, and just puts you into this dark, horrible world and intimidates you and bullies you. And if you get through it, you will have a positive experience of it, even though for many hours you might not feel like it's been that great. Having said all that, and this is not a diss at Bloodborne, it really puts up the barriers to people, I feel. Yeah. And I don't know if there is a solution to that. Like, can you realistically make it more accessible? Because then do you lose what these games are? I don't know, but Bloodborne, great game for the 8th gen, and certainly a well versed and a deserving nominee on this list, rounding out the 6.
What was Biff's quote of it? It was like eating a roast dinner for a straw. Yeah,
that was it. It was like eating a roast dinner for a straw. You could tell it was all good there, but you're making it hard work for me to get through it, which I respect and appreciate. Like, there is this snobbiness to certain sections of the gaming community where it's like, oh, the Souls games are just the best games because they do this. They don't tell you the story. It's all lore. But it's like, fuck off. Like, don't get me wrong. They're good. They're on our list, but don't be getting on your fucking high horse about it. No. Just because other games have actual cutscenes with characters in it and show you where to go and don't fucking punish you so severely.
I think it's the handheld that you're used to in gaming. Like, no game to be chucked into it. It's like you say, it does sort of weed out the weeds of game. So.
It's great though, because if you play it with, and this probably goes for most of the games, but it's particularly with Bloodborne, if you can play it and have people that either you know or that you can contact that have been through it, you can kind of bounce things off them, and it feels like a bit of a collaborative experience. That's quite cool, because you don't really get that. Like, I'm not going to be doing that with Creed and I'm not going to be going, oh, Adkins, I'm stuck on Valhalla. Can you help me out to get this bit of gold or whatever? Like, it's just not going to happen. Whereas, because of the toughness of Bloodborne, there's a support network there you can lean on, and it does make it a rounded experience. But yeah,
so it seems to have quite a good community. There's a lot of trolls in there, but but certainly the ones that are there for helping, and it's a community that's needed. Like you say, then you're not asking that for Valhalla, but. Double, sir. No, it's one I'm more than happy for it to be on this list, having not completed it, but it's one that kills me to this day that I haven't finished.
You'll get there one day.
Yeah.
Superb game, superb setting, superb atmosphere, great weapons, trick weapons, and changing the different types of weapons. Supreme combat, challenging as fuck, difficult, obtuse at times, but a well worth experience for those that want to kind of go down that route. And you kind of have to want to go down the route. That's another thing. You can't sort of half-arse it. It's not something just to be chipping away at, once every couple of weeks. You want to give this a good crack, and you'll reap the rewards of it. Superb game. Well, that rounds out the 6. Last of Us Part 2, God of War, Breath of the Wild, Uncharted 4, Witcher 3, Bloodborne. Now, I went through the release dates on those. Interesting fact, none of these games were released in this well-regarded, it's like, well, it's the golden era or golden part of the year, Q4. None of these games released in Q4.
Wow.
So the latest game we had was released in June. Everything else was earlier on in the year. So this narrative that all the best games come in November, October, December time, the Dimp lot say no chance. Summer or before, otherwise you've lost your chance. The
quarter of mediocre, we call it.
Yeah, that's it. Overhyped and under-delivering since 1993. 4 Sony/PlayStation exclusive games on there. A domination on that list. 1 Nintendo game and then 1 multi-platform game. Now, we know Phil Spencer, friend of the show. Yep. This is going to be a horrible listen for him, isn't it? Seeing that he didn't make it on the list at all. Because
mate, Guardians, Halo 5, Guardians. That's not on. That's a 10 out of 10. That is. So that's what he's, and that was just the narrative of the console war.
Yeah.
Air quotes console war.
Spanked.
Just really did knock it out of the park in terms of exclusives and sales, but it was just churning out banger after banger, and Xbox was sort of like, it's probably not our focus now.
Yeah.
I think they admitted defeat and went a different way, but it just, it's still incredible how they are still doing it. There's games like I'm sure we're going to mention, but they're still to this day churning out new IPs that tend to be bangers, and bangers. And Xbox have got their own little group of games on there, but they just are night and day worse than the PlayStation bad boys. So it's no surprise that this 6 has, was it 2 free PlayStation?
Yes.
Incredible.
4 of the bastards, 4 of the 6. Crapped on it. Naughty Dog picking up 2 nominations in our list.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people were saying they went, wait, hold on a minute. What are you fucks doing? I went, what are you talking about? And they went, I'm not talking to you, we're talking to you, Naughty Dog. Last gen, you churned out 2 new IPs and 4 games. This gen, you turned out 2 sequels and 1 spin-off. What are you doing? But my belief is that having these 2 nominations on this Dimp Digital Games of the Year list, Games of the Generation, I should say, is showing that the quality over the quantity is sometimes the way to go. And I think in Naughty Dog's defence, the amount of attention to detail that goes into all their games, like, that's just a sacrifice people are willing to have to make.
Yeah. You're getting churned out once a year, we
get to Creed levels of fatigue, which everyone had until they did the Origin switch. Like, I remember we used to moan about that constantly. Another fucking Creed. We felt like we had to play them. Yeah. I got to that point.
What's it? COD campaigns every year. Yeah, this one's better. No, same shit. FIFA, same shit. That's what happens. You get this couple of good generation, they churn out a masterpiece. Tried and tested ways.
Give them the fucking room. They'll deliver. Just give them the time. Now, personal picks. 4 of the games in our personal picks are on the main list, so we won't go through them again. We both voted for The Witcher 3 on our personal list. Last of Us Part 2, God of War. Then we deviated slightly. You've put Uncharted 4 on there, so that's the sort of 4 of the 6 that we've already discussed, so no need to talk about them anymore. And there's 2 games that we both picked that were were not on the list, but and in our personal list, and that's Red Dead Redemption 2. Crapped on, not made the final 6. How does that sit with you? Is that hurtful?
It is, but only on a personal level. Just because I did enjoy that more than obviously some like Bloodborne, and probably say I'd rate it over Breath of the Wild personally. But
Yeah.
I can totally sympathise that. But yeah, I just again, this game is still incredible. Just baffles. Another one of those games like Witcher, where you're churning out fucking more hours. I'd say probably like.
Yeah.
I'm still only about 80% complete, and that took about 90 to 100 hours. Like, oh. And again, a similar thing to Last of Us, where you didn't really need the sequel. The first game was its own game. It was done. It didn't need a sequel. They decided to do it, and they came out with a whole new set of characters.
Yeah.
Whole different
Prequel. Always tricky to handle them, but I thought they'd done a stand-up job with Arthur and co.
And
I need more money.
Okay, what's his name? Dutch.
Calm down, Dutch. I've got plenty.
Fucking unbelievable. Like, even putting, when you think about it, like when you put it down on paper, the sort of mundane tasks that you're doing in this game. Fucking in a camp, you're going out fucking hunting.
What I loved about, you mentioned the mundane. I remember because quite a few of us got it, and Logan was one of them. I remember him saying, I just quite enjoy waking up in the morning, getting my stew, having a coffee, and then setting out for the day. Like, he would spend like 15 minutes at the start of every play session, just having his stew and coffee, just setting himself right, having a chat with everyone around the camp, and then heading off. And I used to do the same.
Yeah, it almost became like a bit of a life simulator.
It's
a new version of The Sims. I've there to spend hours. I reckon of that 90, I reckon 15 hours of that is probably me fishing.
Yeah.
It was so good just to fish.
It's brilliant. Like there's a sense of like wilderness and wild and camping out on your own adventure. They really nailed that. Like, as much as it's a Western game, it felt like a lot more like an outdoors type game as well. Got a feeling, getting close with nature. That fucking dynamic hair and beard growth. That was. I used to fucking love that, having a clean shave, shaving the head, then just heading off for weeks on end, coming back and looking at a state, having a good old bath in one of those pubs. Great story, great. We mentioned about the no cutaways. It's another one where it cuts away, but there's no dark screens. Like, it just all seamlessly transitions from cutscene into gameplay. Yeah. Huge game.
A gorgeous game.
Gorgeous for its size and scope. I mean, again, we mentioned Uncharted 4 looking great. This is right up there with the likes of that and The Last of Us Part 2, and arguably the scope on this is bigger than both of those games, like in terms of vista and what you can actually go off and do.
This was like the king of open worlds, wasn't it? It was just like how each town feels different.
Yeah.
Journey towards like how to properly do a horseback riding, Witcher 3 is a stunning
fucking
game.
Roach. I'll slaughter that fucker by the end of the game, but don't let you.
No, but this, you actually felt like a connection to your horse.
Yeah.
And fucking, you could chuck that dynamically, lose your horse, and you'd be fucking heartbroken.
Yeah. Come off a cliff once and it died, and I was absolutely fucking cut up about that.
Sometimes you're literally stranded in the fucking middle of nowhere. If you're up the top of a mountain or something, you chuck it. You got like a fucking 6 mile walk back to the next camp. Unless you try and rob someone. But it was just like that, just going from town to town, and on your way, the dynamic sort of fucking like jumps would happen. Someone would hijack you or something, and it was just such a living and breathing world.
That's the thing. Like, in terms of like a world of other people and animals and an ecosystem, this might have been the best of the lot. It felt legitimate how they coded all that and put that in place, and how people interacted with not just you but others around you. If you just sort of watched them, you'd be like, "Cool, what's he doing over there?" People fucking fighting and rolling around in the dirt, and god damn it, makes me want to go back and play that game from scratch.
And then we're not even mentioning like the multiplayer that's now sort of taken on a life literally this week.
Yeah, just gone. Yeah,
just standalone. 5 UK pounds, you can get access to that on its own, and it's sort of made like a new life, a bit like the GTA Online. It's taken its sort of toll on its own, and that's something I do wish I'd put more time into, and certainly want to go back into it now. It's had multiple patches and stuff.
Yeah, it always teases me to go back in. But Red Dead 2, great game. Story's excellent. I really feel like it was a great arc of Arthur and whatnot, and the way it kind of subtly ties back into the first game. It keeps you on your toes, and you're interested to see John Marston rocking around before you get to know him as a character and see what he's like and see how he operates, and Uncle's lurking about, and all the people in that camp all have their own characteristics and chat and problems, and you can chat to them. They all feel fleshed out, well written, and Rockstar. I feel like it's a bit of a shame that it doesn't make it to the final 6 because it was such an epic game, but it makes our personal lists, and that's all that matters. Get it broadcasted out.
Fucking take it.
Right, that's your 5 done, your personal picks. I've got one more.
Yeah.
Not the most critically acclaimed game. Some people fucking hate this game, but I fucking love it. It's The Last Guardian. The game that I never expected to like and ended up falling in love with.
Didn't expect it to come out.
Oh, well, no. It was dead, wasn't it, for fucking 8 years? Certainly flawed. Well, yeah, certainly flawed. I can definitely see that for sure. But such a special game. To roar through with Trico and build companionship, and that really is a little gem. I think I fucking adore this game, and
these type of games in a generation, and they're just so different from anything you've ever played.
Yeah,
some people won't like it because it's so different, and they'll call it janky or whatnot, but this adds to its charm in some ways. It really does click with people. Obviously, this clicked with yourself, and I think your hype for it was what got me intrigued to play through it. I did play through it, to be honest. I did enjoy it. Very good game. It's part of that sort of thing, and being a big fan of Shadow Colossus and that. I'd love to play through that. I think there was some way they managed to do a 60 FPS patch, and it looks so nice.
Yeah, you have to have the disc version, and then don't download the day one patch, and then it's unlocked frame rate. So I'm hoping that they just apply it to the newest patch for the PS5 infrastructure, because I'll go back and play that in a heartbeat. I definitely will.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous game for its time as well. Fun art style, sort of mishmash. It sort of had an anime. Did he have a name, the character?
I can't remember if he did now. Just called him Boy, but Boy sounds like fucking Kratos. But
he was sort of cartoony anime style, and then Trico was this just bizarre creature, but so realistic and lifelike, the way feathers moved and stuff.
And his mannerisms, how he traversed, how he reacted to things. It felt like you were looking after a great big fucking pet. I think that's where some people bonded with it, is it felt like he was your pet. So throughout the game, he's looking after you pretty much, because he's much more powerful than what you are, and he's helping you get through the puzzles. But you've always got that troublesome thought that what if something happens to Trico, and that's where the game's narrative kind of. I've played Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, both great games, but I was just surprised that The Last Guardian had cutscenes in it, to flesh out the story. I was not expecting that, because they've been so minimal in their storytelling before, and then just to see even establishing cutscenes and then ones midway through the game, I was like, this is great. It's a great little step up for the games that have fallen into this sort of trilogy they've got, and really connected with that. So The Last Guardian goes on the list, and I know people don't like it, but unlucky, because I bloody loved it.
Yeah.
Now, honourable mentions, and these are very brief mentions. They don't get their time in the sun. So you take away your list, and then I'll reveal any differences and plus ones on mine.
Yeah. So again, sticking with a lot of the PlayStation ones, I thought a little mention to Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yep, agreed.
Game that we both loved, open world,
new IP, beautiful.
Robot dinosaurs. That's all you need to know. Get it played. Gorgeous game. Then they come out with a completely different studio, but again, PlayStation, PS4 Spider-Man.
Yep.
Marvel Spider-Man, and it was the perfect comic book game.
Yep.
Getting remasters of it. Again, if you have a PS4 or PS5, get it and play it.
Yeah.
It's a great game. I then went with Inside.
Yeah.
Technically, for some point, it was an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, at one point it was, yeah.
So maybe I've got to manage to sneak one in. But yeah, people call these indie games, but this was just full of style, beautiful little game. Go for it. Again, another thing that these games get called are walking simulators, which I do really like. These games are typically short, gorgeous games, so I have to stick in Edith Finch.
Yeah, great game. The best of that genre for sure.
Yeah, a narrative-driven, great game. Get that played as well. Should be on everyone's list. Doom, for me, FPS, a great sort of renovation of like Doom. It's like, when you think of first-person shooters, this is almost, probably not but like the sort of start of our first-person shooters, and they've rebooted that and modernised it, and it's just a fucking wicked game to play with. For me, probably Doom Eternal is the better game for me. I fucking love that game. But yeah, had to mention that. And then again, sticking with reboots and remakes, I've gone for Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yep.
Cool fucking game. Reinvented horror.
Yes.
The survival horror, which we thought was lost in Resident Evil after playing 4, 5, well, not 4, but 5 and 6, certainly.
Yeah.
Head in the water. And then my last one would be Sekiro.
Yeah.
Not my first entry to the Soulsborne games, but after battling with Bloodborne and sort of almost tapping out, my biggest thing was that I love a narrative, and this game sort of had more of a story than the other games.
Well, Biff said he's skipping through it all.
Yeah, because the story is great, and it's set in Japan, and something that I'm quite interested in as well.
Fuming at that.
Yeah, but it was a joy to play, but a fucking hard joy. I think this playing it and completing it was what sort of spurred me on to get through it.
Yeah, if that weak piss can do it, then
exactly. But yeah, it's just all round. It's all the rewards of playing that game. I'm sure it's the same with Bloodborne, that each boss you sort of killed, you're just such a satisfaction of after fucking attempting each one sort of 15 times again. But yeah, a great game, critically acclaimed. So that's my little honourable mentions.
Sweet. So I'll mention the ones that were missing off mine. Super Mario Odyssey. Absolute stunner. I fucking love this game. And I played Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii, but not too many other 3D Mario games, and I bloody love Mario Odyssey. I think it's excellent. I even went back to it earlier this year to finish off like a fucking vendetta I'd set 3 years ago to finish off like the chasing Peach around the it sounds a bit creepy now, but chasing Peach around the planets and the Odyssey places. And great take on the 3D Mario formula. I think it's a superb game. Life is Strange has snuck onto the honourable mentions now.
That's awesome. That was like the sort of end of the Telltale series. It was done by someone else.
Well, basically, because I love the Telltale games and always knew there were limitations to them. They were reasonably shallow. And it felt like Life is Strange came along and kind of still had some of those problems, like technically doesn't look the best, lip sync, all that stuff, but told it kind of out Telltale in a new and interesting way. Options felt far more dynamic and whatnot, and a great sort of original story. Put Don't Nod on the map for me, so I've started following and playing pretty much all their games since then. Although I miss Vampire, which is a bit of a change of direction, but I will get to one day. I've had to chuck Destiny on there, and this could just be Destiny 1 and 2, just because in the Dimp lot we spent hundreds of hours playing this, raiding, having a good time together. Well, trying to have a good time together, getting pissed up on wine, sitting there for 6.5 hours doing one raid. you can't take away those moments, despite all the arguments and poison that came out of it. At its best, Destiny was a fantastic game. At its worst, it was breaking up marriages. So that's the sort of spectrum that Destiny falls on. Another multiplayer game, Overwatch. I felt like that brought all of us together for, a few months, if not half a year. And we was all jumping. At one point, we was jumping into the ranked games, for goodness sake. I mean, when was the last time you saw an Adkins in a ranked competitive game, getting labelled medals and whatnot?
Still eluded that gold medal.
That was
absolute disaster. But no, I'm not typically. I never play online games. I'm a single player guy, but that did break the mould for a few of us. And obviously the boys that are on it are always on it.
Loving life. Death Stranding, chuck that in there because, 110 hours building roads, enough said.
That's it, yeah, that's a great game.
Disco Elysium, excellent RPG, really unique game, a lot of reading, but tells a great story, gives you fantastic choices in how to tackle certain things, and a really unique way of getting to know your character and learning more about them and how to tackle things. Superb game. If you're interested in older school RPGs, this is a must play. And then I've been kind and chucked Ghost of Tsushima on there because this open world formula, we've had the best of the best in The Witcher, and then we've had the Krieg likes where we accept Krieg. There's a nice casual playthrough, but they're bloated to fuck and not really that interesting. I feel like Ghost of Tsushima brings a different kind of model towards the open world narrative-driven stories. Like, this felt unique and stood out. Looked gorgeous, great setting, excellent combat, and yes, it has the kind of falls into some of the traps that some typical open world games fall into, but it had just enough uniqueness there. Following foxes, sitting in spring baths, fucking learning new stances by looking at hardcore hard people, getting new gear. Side quests are excellent. Like, it had enough there to set it aside and think this is actually a really good traditional open world RPG. And looking forward to what Sucker Punch can do after Ghost of Tsushima. So that's it.
Top tip.
That's the honourable mentions.
If you're going to go mobile.
Go on, what was that?
Pokemon Go.
Oh yeah, chuck that in there.
Chuck that in.
Sensation. Got us all going down the fucking South Church Park or whatever it was.
That was it.
Having a run round on our summer afternoons. That was a sense. Everyone was playing that.
Yeah.
Nana playing it, and that's when you know something's hit big. Right, time to reveal the big one, and we're not going to go fucking drag this out and then spend another 20 minutes talking about it, because we've done all 6 of these great games in relative detail, and we've kind of touched on a lot of them in previous podcasts in the run up to this. So there's a lot of this may have been repetition. So if you sat there over an hour thinking I've heard all this, then you should have logged off hours ago and just binned it, because you've heard a lot of it before. But you're here to find out the winner, who takes home the crown of Dimp Digital's Game of the Generation. It's going to come down to one of these 6. It's going to come down to The Last of Us Part 2, God of War, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt, and Bloodborne. There can only be one winner, and in what was, in terms of the voting and how we get to this situation, it was a bit of a landslide, and the winner of Dimp Digital's Game of the Generation is
Destiny.
It stings in with a title. It's taken Game of the Decade, and now it's taken unfortunately it's not Destiny, but it is The Last of Us Part 2. Now, The Last of Us original got Game of the Decade, and now The Last of Us Part 2 has set itself up with a, will it still be thought of in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
But, it's got a Game of the Generation title now, so it's set itself off on a good start, really.
Yeah. It's so deserved. Fucking brilliant game, but yeah. I'd be interested to see if they do stick with a third, get one done, stick at the end of this gen, and we'll be doing this again in fucking 10 years, 7 years time. Game of the Generation, Last of Us Part 3.
The final trilogy.
There you go. You've just had a promotion to co-president.
Yeah.
Druckerman, but now you've got the fucking icing on the cake. You've now got the game of the generation from Dimp Digital.
It was up against it as well because there was them leaks that came out. Then the poison that seeped out of the game for many of those that hadn't played it, just made assumptions based on the leaks they'd read or someone telling them a information spreading, and there was a true an underground level of negativity being pushed towards The Last of Us Part 2. But luckily, in most cases, I think there's people that don't like it regardless, and I think that's kind of why I like it a bit more, is that it didn't play up to your feelings. It didn't run the safety play and go, right, let's just keep everyone happy with what we've had and keep the formula and give everyone the feel-good story. Let's really challenge people. Let's challenge people's perspectives and their perception of what's good, what's bad, why people are doing things. And it really succeeds on a narrative front. It's enjoyable to play, looks great, and well-deserved game of the generation in my eyes. Superb set of 6 games, though. Can't take it away. And it's actually been, I don't know, pretty good gen, I think. All in all. I know we haven't had the new... One thing people will say is that we didn't have many new IPs.
No.
I felt like we got a lot of refinement, and the refinement sometimes is better than just a new idea that's sort of half delivered.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that statement, definitely. But the ones that did come out, they're just increasing the worlds and stories of the ones that are there. But it's just made me so more excited as games are just getting better and better every generation. And
I think that's the key, is that there were some fantastic games on the 360 and PS3 and during that era, but I feel like they've stepped up and they are getting better. Whether it's in terms of the more mature storytelling or more nuanced storytelling or well-rounded. Go on.
The stories and that, they're now being turned into films. They're now being turned into TV series. The films have always been there, but they've typically been shit, really.
Yeah.
No buzzing around. But the series now, you're now getting decent reviews series. But The Last of Us coming out, well, not coming out, but been greenlit and certainly on its way. Which is now established.
Yeah.
It's actually thought of good. So there's hype around it. You're getting animes from Castlevania. It's just showing you
Uncharted
how
lurking.
Exactly. Yeah. Tom Holland. And it just shows you that how the gaming industry is increasing all the time with these better writers and better games. They're being talked about more, like GTA 5 has sold more fucking games, more fucking copies than some of these Hollywood films. It's incredible, really, and just exciting for the future.
Yeah, great generation. I hope those of you that were embarked on the 8th generation enjoyed it, and I hope that if you can get one, you can jump into the 9th gen and enjoy that as well, because I do truly believe, and that's a great statement to end on, really, Adkins, what you said. Games are just getting better and better with refinement, with new ideas, with fidelity, with experience in writing for the medium. It's a positive. When you put these 6 games down and say these are some of the best, and there's dozens more just below them, just a smidge below these 6 that are on some days just as good. You really are sport for choice on how many great games you can go out and play. Doesn't matter what genre you're interested in, there's something there for you now. And although these 6 might not epitomise every corner of gaming in terms of RPGs and multiplayer and other genres, you could come up with another 6 on any genre and they'd be pretty good games. I can almost guarantee that. So that's it. Game over for this particular week. We'll be back next week. Should be the quiz next week.
Cool.
If something goes wrong, but look forward to that. Follow us on the old socials at Dimp Digital, and if you stumbled across us, you can find Idle Game Chat on any good podcast app.
Yeah, big week with Cyberpunk. Delays in review copies caused Controversy among the fans.
Yeah, so for those so we've got the quiz next week. That should be that and that. Then the Fantasy Gaming League is coming to a head. Both championships basically hinge on Cyberpunk. We've got the team game or the championship game between Paper and Biff, and Paper's got all his games out. They're all out there. He's got a score of 801. Biff's on a score of 762, but he's got one game remaining, which is Cyberpunk. Now, our rules are that the game has to have been out and reviewed before the end of the 10th of December. So, if at midnight on the day that Cyberpunk comes out, so when we get to the 11th, if it's not there, he could get a blank. And that'll cost Biff the title, because I can't see it scoring less than 40 or whatever he needs. It's going to get... It can't score that badly.
Imagine that, if it did.
If they all come on the 11th, he'll lose. He needs the Open Critic score needs to be there at some point on the 10th of December.
Is it 3 reviews to get a score?
It's either 3 or 5, yeah.
Right.
So I think for Biff's side, he's fine. Like if he gets a score, I don't think it's going to be low enough. Like it's got to be less than 40 for it to, it's just not going to happen. Where it gets really interesting is in the Grand Prix. You're currently in the lead. You've posted a 804 score. Cool. No one else can catch you who's posted other 10 game rosters. Only one person remains who can, and it's Chappers. He's sitting on a 721, so 80 odd points adrift. So he needs Cyberpunk to come out. He needs those reviews to be published on the 10th. He needs the Open Critic score on the 10th, but he has to get a minimum of like 80 odd points, which, given the hype of Cyberpunk, you would think is fine. Yeah. But if only 5 reviews get published and one of them's quite negative, it won't take a lot to drag down 5 reviews and putting them at the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. Like, if it comes out and doesn't get a high enough score out of the gate, and then not enough reviews sort of land to bring it up, you could be walking around the championship, Adkins.
I have this glimmer of hope. I don't think for certain that if it comes out, I don't think it's... well, actually, was it 84 it's got to be?
Yeah.
Then maybe a chance it could be, if it's a bug-ridden mess.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It could be an ace. There is still a chance, but... like you say, with the hype of this game, I think my main focus is if I can get. The trouble is, it costs me Biff. If it does this, I do win the what's it called, but poor old Biff will suffer. But yeah,
what if it comes out and posts to 70? You still win and Biff wins.
That's true. Yeah, I'll go for that.
So it's all kinds of head on the socials. You can follow us, and that will be. It depends when these reviews are dropping, because we're hearing conflicting information that the code might have got there late, all this good stuff. Like Open Critics, what we go off, there needs to be a score posted on the 10th of December. It will run up until 11:59 on that Thursday, and we could all wake up on Thursday and they're already posted and it's all game over. But if it's taking longer than expected, it could be a deadline day like none other. It's never been this close in both championships. Like, it's coming down to the very last major game of the year. So stay tuned, and we'll have the fallout in podcast form in a couple of weeks or so. But we'll call this one to an end. Mm-hmm. Nothing more for us to say apart from thanks for your time, and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.